Oh no, these producers is driving me crazy here at the Geekcast Radio Network. Oh, what am I to do?
Hello and welcome to episode 220 of the Cinema Geeks. I am one of your Cinema Geeks, Optimus Solo, and joining me once again is the Comic Concierge. Hello, Dan.
Hey, how's it going?
It is going. We took a little break on the last episode and did some 2025 catch-up work, but now with episode 220 in front of us, we are back at the Alfred Hitchcock filmography. So for those of you that are still with us, yes, we're still doing at least this film here today. We are into 1955. So 1954 was the likes of Dial M for Murder and Rear Window. And then 1955, we get To Catch a Thief, which is listed as an American romantic thriller. So a romantic thriller where every movie is a different play on a thriller or a suspense. So we got the romance on this one. It's from a screenplay by John Michael Hayes based on the 1952 novel of the same name by David Dodge. And of course, the film stars mainly Cary Grant and Grace Kelly. Dan, can you just remind the listeners what your experience of To Catch a Thief was going into this?
This was the first time watch for me, so I have never seen this before. And honestly, I didn't realize this was a Hitchcock film. Like, I've heard of it, but I didn't realize it was Hitchcock, and we can gotta get into maybe why in a bit. But yeah, first time watch for me. How about yourself?
Yeah, also a first time watch for me. This was definitely when we decided to extend the filmography past the original 10 films we had. This was like one of the ones I wanted to watch the most, solely based on Cary Grant and Grace Kelly and what we had seen them do in other Hitchcock films. They both appear in multiple Hitchcock films. So I was definitely high on wanting to watch this one, but I had no idea what kind of movie it was, what it was about, I knew it had a positive rating like on Rotten Tomatoes and other consensus like critic sites and things of that nature, but I really had no knowledge. So a completely blind watch for me as well. So this one came out in August of 1955. It's a 106-minute runtime. Budget was $2.5 million. It's made quadruple that, I want to say. It was pretty successful right out of the gate. If you look at the critics, they're a little bit mixed. You can find some good, some bad, but overall, like when you go on like a Metacritic, Rotten Tomatoes, that type of thing, it is going to have a very favorable reception. I think it's got like a 92% on Rotten Tomatoes. So on this first watch, Dan, what was your first reaction on To Catch a Thief?
Actually, gonna circle back to remember when we watched North by Northwest, and I believe we mentioned in that how, which was another film, of course, starring that of Cary Grant. How that, in a way, felt very much like a James Bond movie in its presentation, just and how it was executed. Honestly, I felt even more with this. If you squint, this is very much like a James Bond plot in a lot of ways. You have stunning locales that are a huge part of the story. You have your charming lead who has this shady past, and you have a lot of espionage going on, disguises. You have a lot of femme fatales who play a huge role. That a lot of people kind of changing allegiances throughout. You could easily make this into a James Bond movie. There's car chases. I don't think we've gotten a car chase before this elaborate, and also there is a lot of comedy in this as well, which you, depending upon what James Bond you're watching, tend to see. Not saying this was trying to be a James Bond movie. I just had that feeling watching it. It's coming out in 1955, so well before
7 years.
Yeah, well before
7 years
James
prior.
Bond was even a thing. Yeah. So, but I definitely enjoyed this. I would say it does feel a little less ambitious than some of Hitchcock's previous films, but it does seem like he's just having more fun with this one. It just seems more like, you mentioned romance and things like that, and there are some thrills, but I don't, we don't necessarily have the center of this isn't necessarily a murder. It's stealing. It's a thief. So by that, it's not that murder doesn't happen, but it doesn't feel as intense. We mentioned how a lot of these have been thrillers. And I'd say the thrills on this are purposely not as in your face, and I think those are maybe the weakest elements. But as always, it is Cary Grant and Grace Kelly showing why they're movie stars. There are directors who believe in subtext, and then there's Alfred Hitchcock, who's like, I'm going to have a scene with Cary Grant and Grace Kelly and literal fireworks in between them, and it's going to work because I'm Alfred Hitchcock and they're Cary Grant and Grace Kelly, and he's right. So I do think this is a movie that, with lesser stars and probably a lesser director, not nearly as successful, but I enjoyed it. It was, like I said, I think this is probably one of the more entertaining films. I think this is a good like lead into Hitchcock. If you're like, don't start with Vertigo, start with To Catch a Thief, because I think it's an easy buy-in. So how about yourself?
I think you brought up a ton of great points that I'm going to probably echo a lot of the same thoughts. I think you're right. I think this one works because of a few things. Number one, because Hitchcock's behind the camera. Number two, because Cary Grant and Grace Kelly are leading the march, I guess, when it comes to an acting standpoint. And then you have from an accolade standpoint, you have a Academy Award win for best cinematography for the film. You have nominations for best art direction and best costume design. So like it has all of those things going for it. So I don't know how much the story mattered. You know what I mean? And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with the story, but I'm just saying like what you're saying is 100% correct. Like if you take Hitchcock out, you take Cary Grant and Grace Kelly out, you take the combination of obviously Hitchcock leading some of the camera work and cinematography and stuff like that, but obviously people that were executing on a high level as well. Like you take all of that out, and I don't think this would work probably. I mean, that seems weird to like, if you take half of the movie out, it's probably not going to work. But I think it just touches on the point that you were trying to get to, and that you said as far as like the thrills is not what is going to lead this film. And I was surprised that there was a lot of contemporary reviews that were positive as they were, because I would have thought there would have been more, especially coming off of the likes of Dial M for Murder and Rear Window as his last two films, that there would have been some harsher critiques on the lack of suspense and thrill that this one could be accused of. Um, this one is more of just like you said, it's a good time. Like I feel like Alfred Hitchcock had established himself. He's had some success. He nails down one of the best actors and best actresses of the day, goes to the French Riviera and just has a vacation and films a film while he's there. Like, I don't know. It seems like it's just a good time. Like, I don't know how you can watch this film and not at least get some enjoyment from it. If you're going in, I think the only way this gets negative reviews is kind of like that whole idea that we've talked about a number of different times when we've been reviewing more modern movies, and it comes up a lot in movie critiquing, is if the movie is not what you wanted it to be versus you going in and just watching the movie for what it is. So I think if people were going in wanting a certain type of movie, they may have been disappointed based on what Hitchcock had given previously. But if you went in with a no expectation and I'm just going to like watch this movie and see what it is and let it determine what it is for me versus me going in with that expectation, then I think it would work for most people. And I do think I definitely picked up on all of the James Bond-esque things. Like there's even a moment where he says his name and he says Roby, John Roby.
Yeah.
Like if that wasn't somehow lifted from here, or if somebody wasn't paying attention and made this, the thing with James Bond, I don't know, unless that was in the Bond. Like I don't know when was Bond. I know the
Books
movies didn't exist.
The books started first published in 1953. So this was
And I don't know if that existed in the books, like how he said his
Yeah.
name, or if that was a movie thing. Like I'm not as like well schooled on the James Bond world.
Yeah.
I did find interesting though when looking through some of the notes and trivia and like research for this film. I don't know if you had this in your notes as well, but they actually went to Cary Grant first. According to one note I read, that the people behind Doctor No in 1962, the first Bond film, actually Cary Grant was their first choice.
Okay.
Based on some of the stuff probably that they see in this and in North by Northwest and things of that nature. And I saw like a couple different sources that say like he was offered a role or talked to about the Bond role and turned it down because he did not want to play a recurring character. He didn't want to be linked to something that was going to be multiple movies, and they were definitely looking for somebody that was going to uh, be the character for not just one film. So I don't know how much truth that is or not. I didn't like substantiate it and cite my sources and things of that nature, but I read a couple notes that they did approach him first, which makes sense. Like he's doing all the things. Although at that time he would have been, I think he's 50. Is he 50 in this film? So he would have been 57 by the time Doctor No comes out. I don't know, but he's playing like a 30-year-old in this film, so I don't. Maybe the
Yeah.
age doesn't matter. I don't,
I mean,
but
for 50 in 1950s, the guy's, man, he's like putting Tom Cruise to shame on top of roofs and
right,
everything. Like that's
yeah.
there you
So it
go.
makes sense that we didn't see him do more stunts probably, but he was on top of the roof. But I am like as much as I am high on Cary Grant, like Grace Kelly is just on
Yeah.
another level. Like she is flipping amazing. Like I knew nothing about Grace Kelly moving or going into this retrospective outside of that it's a name that you know of classic Hollywood, right? Like
Yeah. Yeah.
there's certain names that just come. I think of like the Madonna song from the 80s or 90s where they talk about Ginger Rogers and Grace Kelly and Fred Astaire and like they name a bunch of them.
Yeah.
I think in Vogue maybe or something like that. So like I know her name, I know what it's associated with. You know, it's kind of like when you hear a Hepburn or when you hear Clark Gable or something like that. Like you know that they're famous, but you don't know why. And like this filmography has made it no doubt why. Like there's
Yeah.
no doubt why she was the star that she was. The crazy part is you have these two playing like the love angle in this film, the romantic leads, and seemingly the like the world is theirs, right? Like it seems like
Mhm.
they could do anything they want, and then both of them are no longer doing films within what, less than 10 years, less than 12 years. They're both out of Hollywood.
Yeah.
Like it's crazy to me.
It's also kind of. I mean, I know not that Hollywood is great then now, but there is, I know, obviously a lot of issues back then. But I think also
Right.
Cary Grant got out for family reasons too. But I can imagine.
Yeah,
And what
for
you
sure.
wonder.
He definitely wanted to I think was it his son or daughter? I can't remember now. It's been a while since I watched the documentary, but he had at least one young child that he wanted to be there for among other things. I guess he had actually in one of my other notes I read that, and we'll get into the movie I promise a little bit more. But in one of my other notes I read that he had actually said he had retired before this film. They didn't mention that in the documentary I watched, but there was one note that said that he actually had somewhat retired before this film and that he was convinced to like come back, and then he did movies for like another, however long it was, 10 years or whatever before he retired.
Yeah.
I'm not 100% sure on that. And then on the Grace Kelly thing, it's interesting that we're talking about it during this movie because she meets the Prince of Monaco during the filming of this, I believe, and that is who she eventually marries, becoming the Princess of Monaco, and retires from acting. So I don't know how long that took. I don't know if it was within 10 years. I know that much. So this film could have, I guess, played a part in her not necessarily needing to be a Hollywood star. She was royalty at that point. No surprise.
It almost
Um,
sounds like it should have been a movie. I mean, like that
right.
feels like it could be a
Definitely.
great Skelly movie.
Well, yeah. And then she eventually, I know this is like not anything to do with the movie and it's not a great, like, positive story, but she eventually is in a car accident, which is what leads to her passing. Um, and there's her I don't know if it's her biographer or it's a family member. I think it's a family member that says it wasn't, but there was a lot of actual like rumors that the street that she gets in the car accident on and goes over the cliff on is one of the streets that the car chase is like filmed in this film.
Oh wow.
I don't think it's the actual street that we see, but I don't know how far removed it is. Like it's in this general area, I believe, which is kind of another spooky like connection to this film. But getting back into the actual like nuts and bolts of To Catch a Thief, what did you feel about like what elements worked best for you? Because we talked a little bit about that we have the romance, we talked a little bit about the thriller. You mentioned comedy. Like, does one stand out more than the other, or what do you feel like carried the film overall?
Do you think the locale was a huge part of it? Like they really milked this location as much as they can. Like we got a lot of, I don't know, if helicopter or crane shots of, especially with the car chases is watching these cars go up in these villas and things like that. I think and just on the beaches, it was very much as cliche and as horrible as it sounds, like making this location into a character. It was a huge part of, I think, the appeal of this, and then I think that's part of what makes it unique. And then, of course, like I do think it is, like you mentioned, Grace Kelly and Cary Grant, and I think, like you mentioned, looking at Grace Kelly, what's great about her is like how much control she has of a scene. Like she's always, I think, one step ahead of where you think she is, character wise, and even like her performance. Because she's not one to be fooled. She's figured things out, and I think she portrays that relatively well. And I do like that about her character. So that and their chemistry works well. And I do think the comedy, like there was some pretty good comedic bits, like especially with like some of the chases where you have that like car crash after, I believe it was a chicken in the road, if memory serves me, where they like, solving that age old question. And I think just like that consistent tone, it just kind of kept it light. And I do think where it faults a little bit, like what I felt was like the weakest part, it was like the last third where it starts to get more serious. We start to like try to figure out this mystery, and it feels like we kind of know where it's going, but it takes just I thought the pacing kind of comes to a halt as it tries to like come up with this elaborate scheme, like multiple elaborate schemes to find out who's the thief really is. And I feel like we all kind of know who it is because it's like the only other character that we've seen in the movie. So it's like, I don't know, like, and it just and that's where it got a bit more serious, and like it didn't have. And I think with this movie and thinking about some of the films we've gone over, I would say if there's one thing Hitchcock struggles with the most, and it's the hardest thing for a lot of storytellers, no matter what medium, is endings. Because I do think like the endings for a lot of his movies, some are great, and some like just kind of peter out or just feel like they're go too big for their own good. Like thinking of the not Dial M for Murder. That actually had a really good ending. I'm trying to think of the movie with like we watched so many, they all kind of combine with the merry-go-round. Strangers on Train.
Strangers on Train.
Yeah. So like I just felt like looking back on this, and this was another one where it's just the ending was a little kind of got lost in its own design and its own machinations, where it's like it got away from what made the movie work. So I think that's just, to me, as you asked, like what was the strongest element, it was that. And when it went in a different direction, the movie suffered a great deal, but I still ended up relatively enjoying it throughout.
I thought the pacing for me also was a thing that I don't think it was bad necessarily. I just think they were at different paces at different times. Like it seemed like some sections of the film were moving at a relatively fast clip, and then some like really slowed down, and it was a little bit back and forth with that. It didn't really bother me necessarily, but I just did notice like that seemed like it didn't flow quite as well as some of the other films that I think we've watched. And I know that maybe we'd say that the tension from the plot standpoint wasn't as high as other films when it comes to the actual like who's bad, who's good, who did it type stuff. But I think the tension from like a sexual standpoint or from a relationship standpoint
True. Yeah.
is like way better than what we've gotten in some films. Like I think early on, Hitchcock doesn't always necessarily nail the love story angles or parts of his film.
Yeah.
Like it's a little hit or miss, but I think this one is pretty well nailed. I just think of a couple different sequences, like one, that car sequence that you're talking about, because he literally, and it goes back to what you said, like she's always in control. Like she's the opposite of a damsel in distress, right? Like she is, before any type of movement of like a strong female in control, like Grace Kelly was doing it right here. And like when they're in that scene in that car chase, he says something about like can't we speed up, or can't this thing go faster, whatever his line is. And she like scares the crap out of him for how she's driving along the cliffs of this terrain. So like that was one thing. You had the other sequence with the probably one of the best sequences in the film, if you ask me, is the necklace, where she's almost enticing him to hold it to like see if it's gonna like have some type of like effect on him. And then there's just a lot of like sexual tension in that whole sequence, which I think is well done. We also get another weird sequence of Cary Grant eating chicken. I don't know if that was like a thing because we see that in which one is it? Suspicion? Where's the one where they're eating? Oh gosh, you're right. They all start to blend together now.
I think it's this one because it's not North by Northwest. I don't remember
It's
him
one
eating
of the
chicken.
earlier ones that we watched, like right around Dial M for Murder, and my mind's just blanking right now. But is the other movie that Cary Grant's in, obviously, Notorious. Notorious, he's
Yeah.
eating chicken in the like almost that balcony of that hotel room or whatever, and now she's offering him a leg or a breast or whatever she says, a thigh or a breast, and obviously some innuendo there. So, um, I think the only thing that some people would have been questioning was kind of like what you said. The bad person can only be three characters, right? Because we've only seen three characters outside
Yeah.
of some little. So either Cary Grant's lying the whole time, and he's still the robber, which I think most of us would have discredited as that's not going to be the sequence. So it literally has to be one of the females. Like it's either Grace Kelly's character who's just been playing him the whole time, or it's the younger girl that he has the sequence in the pool or in the lake or whatever, and then obviously at the restaurant, et cetera, that he has a history with. So were you for sure that it was the other girl the whole time? Because I was halfway thinking that it could have been Grace Kelly.
At first, I thought I maybe, but when she revealed that she knew who he was, I'm like, oh, okay. Well, then there goes that. Because I thought like she was trying to frame him. There were some moments where I was thinking that, but I feel when she lets that go,
Hmm.
then I'm like, okay, clearly she knows who he is, and I don't know. I guess I wasn't like always convinced, but I guess it maybe it was just unfair because I'm like they're not going to make Grace Kelly into the thief, into the bad guy. So
Right.
maybe just that element of it was why I never. But maybe if
I don't
they
know if
did
I
that,
ever
be
thought it was, but I thought maybe I wanted it to be like just
yeah.
as
I
like a
mean,
weird twist. Like this would be kind of fun if she's the actual robber, but the other character clearly has more of the villain, whatever you want, tropes
yeah,
or tones or like
and
pieces
he had
to
to
it.
know had to know his mo, his background, and everything like that. So
I
unless like
thought,
it was because like they were
yeah,
copying his style, so that's like that's
right.
why they thought it was him.
I thought that's one thing the film may have been able to do a little bit better job, especially like in the middle or like the second act or whatever you want to call it. I thought there could have been a little bit more because I think the second act focuses mostly on just Grace Kelly and Cary Grant and like their development of their relationship. And I thought if they had sprinkled in a few more, not clues, but like breadcrumbs to like the way that she was mimicking him, because I know they say some of it, but like I would have been nice to see a little bit of that, like to make it more of a like solving of the mystery, I guess, because we kind of touch on it at the beginning, then we have the relationship with Grace Kelly and Cary Grant, and then we just jump to the end where we figure out everything, on the roof, etc. So I thought there could have been some more breadcrumbs throughout to connect that a little bit, but other than that, like I don't really have too many major complaints. Like I don't think this is like top tier Hitchcock necessarily. It's not going to make like the probably like my top. I don't know. I haven't done the totally, but it wouldn't be in my top 4 or 5 films. But I don't really have too many negative things to say about it. What about you? Other thoughts that you haven't been able to share?
Yeah, like I agree. It wouldn't be near the bottom. It's uh, like I said, I don't have a lot of negative things to say. It was more so I don't think this was trying to do as much as the other ones.
True.
Like it does feel like it's like this one's just going to be a good old time. Like
Yeah.
it does feel like they had a certain movie they were going for, and it's like we don't necessarily have to. We're not making Psycho 2 here.
Right.
That'll come later, oddly enough. Uh, but I think it achieves what it sets out for. Like I said, except for that little, the ending piece that it didn't. I did
Right.
like. I mentioned it earlier, but I did love the shot of the fireworks going off in the background, and they're having their conversation. Like that was, it was maybe a little heavy-handed, but at the same time, it's the '50s. You kind of have to play around with the censorship that existed, and I thought it
Right.
was really good. And there were actually some scenes like we didn't mention it, but the one scene where he drops the chip down the lady's dress. I'm like, wow. I'm like,
Oh yeah.
I'm surprised they got away with that. But I did again. It was just him being slick again because pretty sure that's how he got some money, or what
Right.
have you. So yeah, I like I said, it was an enjoyable watch,
Right.
it and it's not going to same. It's not Hitchcock's best film, but I don't think he was trying to make his best film here. I think he realized what he had. He just wanted to
Right.
make a vehicle for Kelly and Cary Grant to kind of do their thing, and it was doing it well in a stunning location. Although, like, when Grace Kelly was driving at times, I'm like, has she ever driven a car before? Because like, the way she would have been, her car is going to be like swerving all over the place. But I also get like that was kind of like the expectations back then, and
Right.
the rear projection or whatever. Gotta let those little things go. But
I
yeah, I
did
don't know.
like the dynamic of that sequence too when they're all in the water, where he's thinks that she's left the beach or whatever, and then turns around and she's in the water, and they kind of have that the three characters kind of
Yeah,
back and forth between it. I thought that was well done because you know what position he's in, and
yeah,
you kind of like feel for him and are like, well, how's this fool gonna like navigate these waters? Pun intended, I guess. But that was a great scene too, I thought. And
yeah,
I think what you said makes sense. Like, regardless of how you feel about like where it ranks or where it doesn't rank, I think this film serves two purposes 100%. Like, I think this is a great entry point into Hitchcock, like you said. And I think this, if you want to know why Grace Kelly was a movie star, you just need to watch this. Like,
yeah.
this is a great showcase for her. I haven't seen all of her movies, so I'm not saying it's like her number one film, but I think it shows a lot of why she was who she was. I mean, obviously she's great in the other films that we've seen of her so far in the Hitchcock retrospective, but I think this would be like if somebody was wondering like what was the big deal about Grace Kelly, I would probably point them to this film.
Yeah. The other thing I think we haven't talked about, and they hint at a lot with Cary Grant's character John Robbie, like his background and like how he was a soldier, and is that was kind of through line too, because you see all these people who have who he comes into this hotel and they all look at him like they want to kill him basically, and just finding out that like he was a soldier. And I guess they were in prison and got out and like was able to fight. And it's just interesting considering like World War II is just 10 years earlier than that's 11, depending of
Hmm.
like and just how that's still obviously going to be something that takes place. And we haven't had we of course did Lifeboat, but
Hmm.
just considering seeing that connection a little bit, I thought was a nice little touch. It just also gave you some insight on that character as well as like where he's coming from. So
The other interesting thing about that is they take it a step further and they talk about how he spent time like I don't know if they say circus necessarily or I don't know if they say the word circus or trapeze artist or something of that nature, but they talk about how he was like involved in that world at some point, which is interesting because that's literally what Cary Grant did in his own life.
oh really?
So I don't know if that's how it was written or if they wrote that specifically because of Cary Grant's history, but I thought that was kind of an interesting thing too because like I said, I'd watched the Cary Grant documentary I don't know, maybe about a month ago now, after one of the films we covered, and then I saw that and they made that line. And I was like, well, that's literally what Cary Grant did. So I thought that was a kind of a nice little twist if they intentionally did it, which I assume they would. I don't know. It seems like something strange to just come up with if it didn't, I guess, but. Um, I thought that worked for me too. So I'm
Yeah,
happy with this film. Like I said, I
yeah,
don't think there's anything to like be upset about with this film. I think it's just a good, entertaining, enjoying like watch of what film was like and could be when you have two great movie stars in a great location back in the 1950s. Like,
yeah. The last piece I had too was, and I think it deserves mentioning because it was nominated for an Oscar, was the costume design, especially like which was normal, but for the most part. But then the last sequence, we get these elaborate costumes and things like that. And
mhm,
at one point, because you have this one character that is dancing with Grace Kelly, and it makes you think it's who she's dancing with, and at first I thought it was blackface. I got a little concerned because like
yeah.
it's hard to tell. I'm like, oh, thank God, it's just a mask. Because at first I'm like, oh no, this took a
Going somewhere
turn really
bad.
quick.
Right.
Yeah, but luckily that was not the case. But because it almost kind of looked like the way Dragon Ball Z that way back when that they actually had to like edit because how it was depicted. I'm like, I think is that I don't remember people talking about that, but luckily that wasn't the case. But
Right.
besides that, the costumes were kind of crazy and elaborate, like this random fashion show that was taking place. Figured
Well, they
give
did
that
a
a little
great
bit of
job of
mention.
highlighting some of the like. I know it's about jewelry and all that kind of stuff, but some of the pieces that were being worn at some
Yeah,
of these things, and they just like show like one after the other, and they're very like complex and ornate and things like that. But I think they did a good job of like really showing like the appeal of them to somebody that maybe has a history of being a robber or is it robber or is it burglar? I think it's burglary in this situation. There is a difference, and I think that's what he's doing. But so
a
I thought that
burglar.
was
Yeah,
interesting too. Yeah, how they kind of like highlighted all those things, and it was also kind of neat that they could have very easily made this all about like some type of MacGuffin jewels that like I know her mom gets her jewels stolen and things like that, but they don't go so far to like have like the like you would see in a, I feel like you would automatically see that today. Like it would be like the whatever the I can't make up a name, but like some famous necklace of some queen or something like that. Like it would be like this big MacGuffin in like a
yeah,
current day film. And I feel like they did a nice job of kind of like making that more of a subtle part of the story versus I mean we do get scenes in the beginning where like women are screaming because their jewels are stolen, but it makes
yeah,
it more general versus like a specific like, oh, we gotta steal this one prize diamond or something like that. I like that they kind of stayed away from that.
yeah. Makes sense. I was. It was just random jewelry, and
Yeah.
it kept it simple, and I think even when it didn't need to. And then the last, I keep saying last thing, but then
You're fine.
we did get a really good Hitchcock cameo in this. Probably the one they called attention to the most at this
Hmm.
point because he's on the bus and like almost like a wink to the camera, and I think that just like sets the tone for the movie kind of right away. It's like, oh, okay, this is gonna be that type of movie. So
And of course, there's supposed to be, I guess you could make a connection there because they turn one way and there's a bird cage, and then the next way it's Hitchcock, and of course he goes on to make the movie Birds. I don't know, maybe a stretch, but I know some
hey,
people
I
point that
mean,
out as well.
like Pixar did that forever, right? Where they would hint at movies coming up. So maybe,
Right. You never know. So yeah, I think we're both pretty positive on To Catch a Thief. And I believe, unless we decide to call another audible, is this going to be the last one, or what do you
I
think,
think
Dan?
so. I think so. I think we've covered it because as we're hinting at, do we want to wait to announce what our next one's going to be, or do we think you feel
I
comfortable
think we can. I
doing
think
it?
we can let them know. You can go ahead.
So it makes sense to kind of pivot. We're kind of going to stick in the same area. We've been talking about how much we've been enjoying Cary Grant, but I thought, well, let's just keep that going, and we're going to do a Cary Grant marathon, or the first time we've ever did an actor before. We've done directors, I guess, unless you count Kevin Smith, who was an actor in his movie sometime, but putting together what movies we're gonna be seeing. Obviously, we saw some of his big ones already, but there's still plenty to choose from. The guy had quite the career, so I'll be interested to see. There's a lot of his big films I've never seen. There's I think even is there another Hitchcock one we haven't gotten to? Maybe we'll add,
No, we've got
go
all the
through.
Hitchcock ones, but we got all
Okay,
the
uh,
non-Hitchcock ones to watch for
yeah.
sure.
I was thinking a
And
charade, which is not a Hitchcock film, but it looks like one
feels
on the
like it, right?
poster. Yeah,
Yeah, so we're gonna cover while we're picking out which Cary Grant films we're gonna cover. We will give you one episode where we kind of summarize everything Hitchcock. So
yeah,
we'll kind of do our version of like a Hitchcock retrospective, I guess, awards show where we highlight, our favorite actors, supporting roles, maybe beginnings, endings, like most suspenseful moments. We'll come up with some categories, hopefully some fun categories to have kind of a conversation about Hitchcock as a whole now that we've covered 15 of his films. If you want more Hitchcock coverage, there is a podcast I've been starting to listen to. I think it's called Film School. I should look up the actual name. It's two guys that are involved in the actual world of like filmmaking. I know at least one of them, if not both of them, have credits on IMDb. It's just called Film School, and it's Ira and Josh are the two hosts, and they have covered like all 50 whatever movies of Hitchcock.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, they're actually switching now to Miyazaki, so we beat them on that one. But they cover like however many it is, 51, 55 Hitchcock films, every single one of them in chronological order. So if you want more Hitchcock, it's a different structure completely than what we do it. So you may like it more or less, who knows? But you can always check those guys out. But we're gonna put a bow on it with our award show, and then we'll transition into Cary Grant, which we're both looking forward to. So Dan, I guess that wraps this up. Do you want to let the people know how they can keep in touch with you and your other content?
Or just search Comic Concierge on all social media platforms, and you'll find me there.
All right, and you can search me out at Optimus Solo, or you can tag the show at Cinema Geeks on, is it at Cinema Geeks or at the Cinema Geeks? You'll have to check, but look for the logo on X or Facebook or whatever we're on. And then you can also always search out the website that all of our stuff is hosted on, the Geekcast Radio Network. So that does it for this episode. Tune in next time for another chance to listen to more of the Cinema Geeks.
Life is a workout, and Smoothie King is here to help you power through. Whether you're crushing morning miles or sprinting through back-to-back meetings, give your body the energy, protein, and power it needs to help you conquer your goals. Only at Smoothie King.
Lowe's knows that more projects mean more tools. For a limited time, new and existing MyLowe's Rewards credit card members can get 12-month special financing on purchases of $299 or more, in-store and online. Don't wait to get the things you need. Get special financing today. Lowe's. We help. You save. Now through August 27th, choose 12-month special financing on purchases of $299 or more. Offer subject to credit approval and cannot be combined. Minimum monthly payments required. See store at Lowe's.com for details.